Fight, 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 fight. How much did you care about the Dallas Cowboys fighting at training camp yesterday? All that and more. This episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosier. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosier. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, the Dallas Cowboys were fighting yesterday in practice. Yeah. How much do you care?
You know, I think that there's a little bit that can be gained from all of this, you know, and I think it's good to see the kind of practices physicality crescendo into this. Like, I think that's from a physicality level, you want to see them kind of ramping up to the regular season, right? So I think that there's something to the idea of having a team that is edgy enough that it needs to get this out of them every once in a while. You need a team that's physical and that is, you know, that's going to fight, because you want to, I mean, on offense and defense, you want to physically intimidate and strike fear in your opponents. Like it's part of the strategy of football. And so I think that's why you see the coaches kind of borderline cultivating this, you know, they didn't quite set up a ring and put the guys in and ring a bell, but I mean, they did everything up to that. And I think it's because they want to promote this level of physicality in their team.
Well,
so,
I mean, Mike McCarthy at his opening day press conference is basically like, yeah, we're going to have some fights and kind of encourage it. Like, we need to be tougher. Right. And so, yeah. I mean, to your point, like they're not saying to go out there and fight, but they're not necessarily like, oh no, don't fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, on a process level, it's not great. I mean, obviously you're not getting better at football by fighting. And the other aspect of it is, you know, people end up on the ground, and when people end up on the ground, people end up hurt. And so like, that's what you worry about is, but I mean, again, this is a smart veteran team. You saw DeMarcus Lawrence pulling Sam Williams away. And then as Sam was going crazy, DeMarcus is like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pop the helmet back on because I know things can go a little bit crazy. That's a veteran move right there. So look,
what's not a veteran move? I just got to say this, got to get off my chest. Punching somebody in the helmet with your hand has never made sense to me. Like,
twice?
Well, because Sam Williams tried to do it to Brock Hoffman, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then Micah Parsons tried to do it to, was it again Brock Hoffman? I don't remember.
No, it was Biotish, and he did it twice. And here's the thing: if you go back and watch that video, I'm pretty sure that what he did is that he threw a quick punch, like a full quick jab,
a little jab,
and then did like a fake thing at the end to, I think, make people think that it was just like a tap or something that he did. But he threw like a full on jab at Biotish, which was crazy.
Again, punching in the helmet is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. What good is going to come for that? The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to hurt your hand. You're going to break your hand, which that's the part of this that I think is stupid. Like, imagine if Micah Parsons seriously hurts his hand, breaks his hands and out for the next 8 weeks. Like, it's a killer. But at the same time, I saw the quote from J. Ron Kirsch yesterday talking about how they have a kind of us versus the world mentality on defense. And they said that even is against our own offense. Like, that's just right. How much we believe in ourselves. That is one of the good things that can come out of some of these scuffles in practice.
Well, and I think you have a really good lesson on to point to folks. Hey, this is why you guys wear those Guardian helmets, right? So you don't break your wrists every time you punch someone in the helmet.
I never knew it was for the opposing players.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that necessary for punch absorption. So, Kirst, mentioned, he said, like, we're not taking ish from any of the 32 teams.
Yeah.
So and that includes the Cowboys, obviously. Yeah. So, I think I want to talk real quick before we move on from this. I think it's important that we saw this kind of thing from someone like Tyler Biotish. Exactly. And I know that sounds weird and crazy, but Tyler Biotish has kind of always been like this for a while, like this replacement level center we drafted. We like him, but he's always been kind of the guy that we always hoped for an upgrade. He had a really good season last year, a Pro Bowl season, got injured, but able to play through an injury in a playoff game. Him kind of taking on this role as the nasty guy who's not afraid to mix it up and get physical, that would be a very fitting spot for him to go in the next phase of his career as he kind of continues to take a next step. And I'm not joking. Like that punch he threw on Sam Williams, even though it was a cheap shot, he got both hands inside, right into the chest.
Didn't hold.
He decleated the guy. It didn't hold. And just to kind of comment on his play real quick. Tyler Biadasz has had a very good camp. When he's been in there, he's been very clean. It's been kind of non-commentary, but non-commentary worthy. But I think that's because it's just been solid, and that's what you're looking for in a center, is someone who's not getting you killed. So I do like that we saw that kind of scrappy mentality. You need an offensive player like that. You can't just have those kind of guys on defense. If you want a physical offense, you need someone who's physically intimidating. I think Tyler Smith, the Tyron Smith, and are that too, but it's nice to have a scrappy guy who's willing to go in there and mix it up when it's time.
And I don't really think that's Tyron Smith or Zach Martin.
That's just not necessarily their personality.
It's not their personality at all. And even Tyler Smith, I just don't think has that personality. Now, I think
gentle giant almost.
Yeah,
kinda, right?
gentle giant.
Yeah.
I think back to, it was 2020, the game that Andy Dalton got hurt against Washington on a cheap shot. Do you remember this? He was sliding and he got concussion, and nobody did anything. Nobody on the offensive line did anything.
That's right.
You saw in this practice when it was Sam Williams trying to take a cheap shot at, I think it was Brock Hoffman that he was going against. Tyler Biadasz standing up for his guy. Like I don't condone fighting, none of that, but you need a little bit of that toughness. And hey, we're going to protect our guys on this side of the ball.
And the earlier fight too, the other one that involved Parsons, that was Biadasz going after Leighton Vander Esch for grabbing Deuce Vaughn too much. If I remember correctly, is that he felt like he was kind of manhandling him a little bit too much, and he was showing up for his guy. Which again, that's what you want on this team. You want these kind of guys. Like I think it was Joey Ickes who said it best, right? That's the kind of buddy you want at your bar. Right, like when you're out having a drink, right? Like someone starts talking to you. You want the dude that's too ready at times to come in and push.
He's just waiting for the sign, right?
Maybe Tyler, maybe don't like come up and beat up one of your mutual friends though. Maybe that's not what we should be.
It's probably a good thing that the Cowboys ended camp in Oxnard, because tempers were flying yesterday.
That's right.
The good news is we did get some positive developments and some positive news that came out of camp. We will get to those next. This episode is brought to you by Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. To take the first step to visibly thicker and healthier hair, for a limited time, Nutrafol is offering listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men. And when you enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL, find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, and that's spelled Nutrafol/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Every dayers. On tomorrow's show, we're going to break down the players that we are most excited to see in week 2 of the preseason when the Cowboys take on the Seattle Seahawks. So make sure you tune in for that. But Lana, let's talk about practice yesterday. One of the things that we saw was Matt Waletzko, the Cowboys' second-year tackle, playing some left tackle. Primarily a right tackle so far in camp. What did you think about him at left tackle?
Well, first of all, I think just generally speaking, Waletzko had a really great day of practice just based on what we saw in videos that were released.
Outside of one rep against Micah Parsons, but I don't count those.
I mean, if you want to count the Micah Parsons reps, then, good luck to you.
Yeah, no.
I think he had they did a lot of one-on-ones yesterday in a way that we haven't seen, specifically offensive line versus defensive line. We haven't seen a lot of that in camp. McCarthy is not as interested in that sort of competitions, one-on-one competition stuff. Like we just don't see it like we did with Garrett, where he would do that every single day, right? So we saw some of those yesterday, and Let's Go had a rep against Dante Fowler in which he was able to kind of get in front of him and did a really great job in stopping him. Fowler got upset. Fowler wanted another rep, so he came back in line, pushed out. I think it was Fahoku who was lining up next. Said, "Hey, no, I'm going against this guy." And Let's Go stopped him even better the second time. And then on top of that was taking the left tackle snaps for Tyron Smith while he was taking his breather during the 11s, and also during 9-on-7, I think, and was great. I mean, looked really good. I mean, definitely got beat by Micah Parsons, but I mean, name an offensive tackle who won't get beat by Micah Parsons. Yeah. And I just feel like they're still kind of trying to figure out how they want to configure this, right? They've seen some positive things from Let's Go. They're leaning into him to see if he can kind of continue this a little bit. And now they're putting a little bit more on his plate. They're trying to left tackle to see, hey, maybe this isn't just a right side thing. He's not as great at guard. Obviously, that was kind of an experiment they tried, right? Didn't work out. Maybe he can be our full left and right tackle, swing tackle. So I think they're trying that out. I would not at all be shocked if he was the starter at left tackle on Saturday night. And I think it's
left guard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they put Awesome back in at guard, and Awesome Richards, I think, also had a very, very good day yesterday. Especially, also looked really good in some of the one-on-ones, and I think I'm trying to remember. I kind of think that he was playing more guard in the team stuff now that I remember as well. But yeah, they definitely are seemingly trying to get Let's Go as a potential, I would say at least in-game swing tackle.
That's the point I was going to make. To me, I think the idea is to keep Matt Let's Go as a swing tackle to get you through a game if Tyron Smith gets hurt. Yeah. And then after the game, maybe that's when you move Tyler Smith back out to left tackle and you slide in Awesome Richards or Matt Farniak, right? Or whoever you want to play at left guard. But it does feel like they're at least toying with the idea of having Let's Go just be the third tackle that's active every week. And then maybe Awesome Richards is that fourth guy who primarily guard, but if you need him to kick out to play tackle at a pinch, he can do that as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if Awesome Richard, until he's needed, is the game day inactive, right? Like that, like he basically is not on the active roster until like there's an injury, and then maybe Let's Go finishes the game, like you said, as the tackle, and then next week you see whether you want Let's Go at left tackle or Tyler Smith at left tackle.
Do you think that's because Farniak has some experience playing center and Richards doesn't? So you just feel more comfortable with Farniak stepping in, playing all three guard spots, all three interior spots.
Well, I think if you're eliminating the idea of a left and right, and then a swing inside guy, then it just makes more sense to carry a swing inside guy and then a swing tackle, right? Just in game. And then, and because he doesn't have any center experience, you probably have to go with like a Farniak or a Hoffman, depending on how things turn out. Well, look, I mean, here's the thing. Here's what we need to realize is that honestly, I think at this point they're viewing Hoffman and Farniak as on pretty similar levels,
probably,
right? I mean, we're seeing them kind of circle each other like binary stars locked in a death orbit. So it's like they're flipping back and forth, like between guard and center, like a quasar. It's like
I just don't see it.
It's making my eyes blink. It's so I can't really tell if they're figuring it out, like they like these guys, or if they don't think that either of these guys can play, or what's going on. But I wouldn't be shocked. Again, I don't want to predict Saturday night lineup, but I wouldn't be shocked if they flopped Farniak and Hoffman back from guard and center from where they were on Saturday. And honest to God, Marcus, I can't remember which one they were on Saturday now. So it may be Hoffman at guard and
well, I think it was center, it was Farniak that was playing guard. It was Hoffman that was playing center.
So I've seen Farniak at center and Hoffman at guard recently. So that's where I think they probably will end up.
So the other question I have is, let's say pick one of those two guys, and then you have Awesome Richards, who's going to be on the 53-man roster. Where does that leave Chuma Adoga? Because he's been out the last, week and a half with an injury now. Where does he fit on this roster? Because if he's not going to be your backup interior guy, and he's not going to be your swing tackle, then what is he?
I mean, I feel like I have so many questions about Chuma. Like, what's the timeline of his injury? I really hope somebody starts asking questions like that, because I mean, I think that's going to have a huge way to determining this. I mean, my question is like, have you seen enough from Chuma in training camp to like certify him as a lock on this team?
Like pencil him into the roster? No, I don't think so.
So I think that's where I'm at right now, is that like I feel like it would be beneficial for them to carry a more veteran guy as their kind of backup guy, but I don't know that I've seen Chuma play good enough football that like I'm, look, Farniak and Hoffman haven't been like lights out or anything yet, but I at least still want to continue to see those guys a little bit more before I'm ready to say, okay, we can cut those guys and we'll keep Chuma Doga instead,
Yeah, the offensive line is something they've got the starters. We know who the starters are going to be. We have a feeling we kind of know who like offensive linemen 6 and 7 probably are. It's just, how many do you keep? Who else is on this roster? Does Josh Ball make it? Does TJ Bass make it? Because I saw TJ Bass again yesterday.
Yeah.
More reps
he's got to be part of this conversation. And that's again, that's what makes a lot of this. I was doing a 53-man roster last night, and I really shouldn't have, because I started it too late, and it's an exercise that will keep you up at night. And I think that the problem, guys, that I continue to run into are these guys who can't do more than one thing, but they're so specialized and required that you almost have to have them on the roster. I'm looking at you, Jordan Lewis. I mean, again, I know I had this conversation yesterday with Patrick on Twitter, and he had some good points, and we can have a whole segment on this. Patrick Walker, sorry, yeah, we can have a whole segment on this. But when you don't have versatility, and you are very specialized, and you're making a lot of money, and there's a lot of other talented players on the team that you want to get on, it makes it really, really hard to justify you on the roster. But the problem is that like on the offensive side of the ball, you need centers. If Biotish breaks his hand during a game, you got to have somebody to go in there and play. The unfortunate side of that is that, the guys that play center on this team outside of Biotish are probably the 8th and 9th best offensive linemen on this roster, and you hate to like bring them on the roster just simply because they can snap the ball.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the offensive line. We're going to talk a little bit more about them tomorrow, just because it's such an interesting spot and it's such an important spot. So
many angles.
Oh, crazy. Yeah. And I also wonder, like, are we going to see Tyler Smith tomorrow play left guard, or on Saturday? Because I kind of think we probably need to see him in game at least a little bit.
Did you see that video of him punching Osa, like not during a fight, but during a rep?
Yeah.
Like he threw a punch that ended up landing on Osa's face, and it was like your Avi on Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It was like Glass Joe.
Yeah.
It's a good question, right? Like I do wonder if we aren't going to see maybe one tier higher on the rung of closer to starter. Well, I mean, Tyler Smith.
Well, I wonder if we see Tyler and Tyler play next to each other in this game. And then you see,
that's what I wonder too.
Let's go play right tackle, I guess, in this game. Then I don't even know. Maybe you want to see more of let's go left tackle to see how that.
Well, that's what it is, right? It's like you had Ferguson last week, right? And like maybe we'll see Gallup, or like you know what I'm saying, like we'll start to see some of the, I don't want to call them low end starters, but like the non-superstar level of starters.
Well, I wonder like maybe even
snaps, right?
I wonder even if like Brandon Cooks is going to play like 10 snaps just to get him on the field, seeing what he looks like. I know a lot of teams are treating this second week of the preseason like the dress rehearsal game. I saw Kansas City is going to play their starters 2.5 quarters, I believe. I've got to imagine the Cowboys are going to up their starters at least a little bit this week. But again, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Make sure you tune into that. I want to talk about our small running back, Deuce Vaughn. We will get to him next. All right, Landon, I'm so excited because the Cowboys yesterday were using more of Deuce Vaughn in the receiving game. I cannot tell you how excited I am about the potential of a screen game actually working in Dallas for the first time since 2016.
Ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while.
ever, Bob. Like, yeah, I mean, like, look, like, I think we've been saying this for it does feel like forever. Like, when can the Cowboys relearn how to use the screen game?
Yeah.
Because it has been detrimental. Like, honestly, the most successful screenplay that they've had over the years is when the terrible tight end screen would occasionally work just out of pure flukiness, right?
I will say they had the one awesome screen against Pittsburgh in 2016.
Well, yeah.
Zeke,
Zeke, his rookie year was incredible with screens.
That's it. That was it.
Yeah, and it seems like outside of that, like, that was a kind of a fluky few years, and then it just immediately went away. Yeah, so to see the Cowboys kind of executing these on a high level, on an offensive line level, is exciting. Now, throw in Deuce Vaughn to that, and now you really got something, because it's so hard to get a clear view of him, especially once he gets out of the pocket and he's behind those guys. And his ability to kind of dodge in and out of the blocking, even while out in space, like, I think it makes him even more dangerous. And and he was actually out there with the ones doing some run stuff as well. And there's another great video of them running. I think it's power, right? Because you see bodies moving kind of, I'm not trying to bump my microphone, but like back and forth across the line. And then suddenly you see like these two guys move like this, and then boop, like right towards you in the camera, it comes Deuce Vaughn popping out right as the hole opens up. And that's honestly what I think we're seeing is like kind of his superpower. Is the reason he's able to be so small and run between the tackles is because his timing on hitting the hole, like right as it opens up, like he doesn't have to see the hole. Like he anticipates the hole and is like already moving forward as it opens up. So it opens up, boom, and he's already through, and it's like you've kind of missed it. And I also noticed another thing real quick, like, tackling him has become very painful, it looks like, for some of these bigger guys, because they end up reaching for what would normally be, like they're kind of trying to wrap up, and they're reaching for what would normally be kind of, the rib waist area, right? And they end up hitting his helmet, and they're end up hitting his shoulder pads. So it's like it's kind of a little bit another thing that just adds to the more not more difficult, but just different way that you're trying to tackle Deuce Vaughn versus everybody else. It's interesting to see him out there with the ones. They clearly have plans for him. So for fantasy guys, I guess.
This is what I want to talk about. Is Deuce Vaughn's fantasy value. That's what really matters here.
We're not talking about that.
I saw a note from Kyle Yeomans yesterday at DallasCowboys.com that the Cowboys were really working him in the passing game, trying to find creative ways to get him the football. And I actually saw Bob Stern was talking about this on Twitter, how you want to beat a blitz. It's not having Deuce Vaughn pick up a linebacker. It's by sending him on a Texas route like they did in week 1 of the preseason. And that's how you just kill teams, with those easy little throws to a little running back that's just going to be so impossible to cover in the open field. I think the Cowboys are going to try to find ways to get him the football in the passing game, because, man, you get him one-on-one with like a linebacker who can't move, which there's a lot of those guys out there, a 248-pound linebacker that can't change direction. And it's gimme yards on third down.
He's dangerous in space, man, because if he can see you coming and he can anticipate it, like, he can find a way around you, so you don't get a good shot on him because of his height, and if he's moving, like, your best bet is that he's dropped his weight to shift, and then you get him. Like, you pounce on him right as he's there. But if you're
so slow that he makes 2 moves and comes back to you originally.
Did you see that, right? That he just appeared back in front of you? Did you see the one play where he runs, I think it was a flat route, and he catches the ball, and to his credit, Damone Clark is right there. Like, I mean, he chased him out and was covering him perfectly. But he, Vaughn did that thing where he already started breaking back inside before he caught the ball. So he catches it with all of his momentum going back inside while Clark is still going outside. So Clark, to his credit, gets a hand on Deuce Vaughn. But that's the point, right? Is that him with all his body weight going away from Deuce Vaughn and reaching and grabbing him, even though he's 5'5", 180 pounds, you're not going to be able to get him because he's all muscle and he's all leverage, right? So it's stuff like that where, the smallness helps. Like it
does
really
help.
does help in your ability to kind of escape those kind of situations.
If you're used correctly. Because like we
Yeah,
saw,
of course.
Darren
Yeah.
Sproles is the perfect example. Like the Saints and the Chargers knew how to use him so well. They didn't ask him to do and stuff in between the tackles to move piles. Like if you just don't expect him to do that, but you get him in space, you throw wheel routes to him, you throw the ball to him in the flat, he can have a lot of value. And I think that's what Mike McCarthy and the rest of the offensive coaches are trying to figure out is what's the best way to use his skill set and his size to his advantage and make it difficult for the defense to stop him.
One last thing before we go, I will say that I think that one thing that has really helped Vaughn is having Turpin on the team. And I think that those two have really helped each other because they use them very similarly in some ways in the passing game. So they are conceiving of these of concepts for smaller receivers. It's not just like, oh, hey, let's take this normal running back receiver route and we'll plug Deuce in there. Like they understand how to use these players, or they're trying to understand how to use these players and how to take advantage of their diminutive size combination with their speed.
That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Again, every day, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about the preseason, a couple guys that we are excited to see. Go check out our show on YouTube. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.